Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be diving into The Culture Code
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
by Daniel Coyle. Have you had a chance to read this one?
Yeah, I have. I really liked his focus on, what makes teams successful, like really high performing.
Right. And he goes beyond just like the, free snacks and ping pong tables.
Totally goes deeper than those surface level perks.
Exactly. And gets into the nitty gritty, like how do we build a team that really thrives?
And it all starts with understanding culture itself. It's more than just like a list of rules.
Yeah. So how would you explain it? Like, what is culture according to Coyle?
It's this kind of invisible force that shapes the way people interact.
It's not just like what's written down on paper.
Exactly, more like what's lived and breathed every day.
So like the feeling you get when you're part of a team.
Yeah.
Like those unspoken norms and behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that operating system running in the background, the one that influences like everything.
From communication to decision making to
how people handle conflict even.
Oh, interesting. So if culture is this powerful, then where do we even begin to unpack it?
Well, Coyle breaks it down into a few key elements, and one of the most crucial and maybe surprising is psychological safety.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Right.
Because the book argues that feeling safe to speak your mind, even if it means disagreeing or admitting a mistake, that's key.
Absolutely, and there's actual research to back this up.
Like what?
Well, Google did this huge study called Project Aristotle. They found that psychological safety was like one of the strongest predictors of a team's effectiveness.
Whoa, so just knowing you won't be ridiculed for speaking up can actually boost a team's performance.
Exactly. And it's not just about avoiding negativity, it's about creating that environment where people feel comfortable taking risks, sharing ideas, challenging the status quo.
Yeah, because if you're always worried about saying the wrong thing, you're probably not going to be your most creative or innovative self.
Exactly. And that leads us to another fascinating element Coyle highlights.
Oh, what's that?
The power of vulnerability.
Now, this seems counterintuitive at first, right? Shouldn't leaders project strength and confidence to inspire their teams? How does vulnerability fit in?
It's not about weakness. Coyle argues that showing vulnerability in the right way can actually strengthen relationships and build trust.
So it's not about airing your deepest personal struggles in a board meeting.
Right.
It's more about acknowledging limitations, being open to feedback.
Exactly. It's like when leaders admit they don't have all the answers, it gives others permission to do the same, which creates this culture of learning and growth.
That makes sense. It humanizes the leader and makes it easier for people to connect.
Exactly. Think about it. Would you rather work for someone who pretends to have it all figured out?
Or someone who's real.
Or someone who's authentic and open about the ups and downs?
Yeah, authenticity definitely builds trust. It makes it easier to connect with someone on a human level.
And that connection, that sense of belonging, that's another crucial piece of the culture puzzle.
So Coyle talks about how strong teams, they invest time in building those relationships.
Yeah, beyond just the tasks.
It's about fostering that sense of community.
Exactly, where people feel valued and supported, not just like cogs in a machine.
Think about the best teams you've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
I bet they felt more like a family.
Absolutely, and when you feel that sense of belonging, you go the extra mile, you collaborate, you weather the tough times together.
It's not just about getting the job done.
It's about something bigger.
It's about feeling connected to each other and to a larger purpose.
Speaking of purpose, that's another element Coyle emphasizes.
Wow.
Successful teams know their WHY.
So it's not just about telling people what to do, but also about the why behind their efforts.
Right. Like, take Patagonia, for example. Their commitment to the environment isn't just marketing.
Right.
It's woven into everything they do.
Yeah, their employees are known for being super passionate about it.
It's like they're part of a movement.
Exactly.
It's not just about selling jackets. That sense of purpose just permeates the whole company, and it's contagious.
It makes you think, do you feel a strong sense of purpose in your own work?
Yeah.
How might that be impacting your engagement?
It's a question worth asking.
And it leads into another idea from the book.
What's that?
The importance of clear and consistent communication.
So it's not just about the quantity, it's the quality.
Right.
Coyle talks about over-communicating, but in a way that's clear, concise, and avoids all that jargon.
So getting straight to the point.
Exactly, and being proactive rather than waiting for people to ask.
It sounds like it's about creating a culture of openness and transparency where information flows freely.
Exactly. And it ties back to psychological safety too. When people feel like they have the information they need, they're less likely to feel anxious or uncertain.
Which makes them more likely to trust their leaders and colleagues.
Exactly. And alongside that clear communication, Coyle stresses the importance of feedback loops.
So we touched on this earlier, but let's dive a little deeper.
Sure.
How do we create a feedback-rich culture?
It starts with framing feedback as a gift, not a punishment.
Oh, that's good.
Creating a safe space where people feel comfortable giving and receiving constructive criticism.
It's about helping each other grow and improve.
Exactly. And making it a regular practice, not just once a year during performance reviews.
You mean like regular check-ins?
Yeah, or even peer-to-peer feedback.
The more frequent it is, the more natural it becomes.
Exactly. And it's crucial to focus on the how, not just the what.
Meaning?
Feedback should be specific, actionable, and focused on behavior, not personality.
It's about what they can do differently, not making someone feel bad.
Right. It's about helping them improve. And just as important as giving feedback is being open to receiving it.
So being open to hearing those different perspectives, even if they're not all sunshine and roses.
Exactly. It's a two-way street, a collaborative process of learning and growth.
I think we often focus so much on giving feedback that we forget to be open to receiving it.
It's about showing humility, a willingness to learn.
And a commitment to constantly improving.
Exactly.
So we've got psychological safety, vulnerability, purpose, connection, feedback. It sounds like building a strong culture requires us to really pay attention to each of these elements.
It's like tending a garden.
I like that analogy.
You need the right soil, the right sunlight, the right nutrients.
And culture needs the right conditions to flourish.
Exactly. And it's not built overnight. It's an ongoing thing.
Right. It's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. But the rewards are worth it. When you have a team that's aligned, engaged, working towards a shared purpose, you can achieve remarkable things.
So we've explored some of those core elements of high-performing team culture, but how do we actually put these principles into practice?
Well, that's what we're going to be tackling in part 2.
So stay tuned. We'll be back to dive into some specific strategies for building these elements into your team's DNA.
Looking forward to it.
All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into the culture code.
Yeah, last time we explored those essential elements, the safety, vulnerability, purpose, connection, and feedback.
Right, those building blocks for a really great team culture.
And now we got to shift gears.
Okay.
From the what to the how.
I like it. So how do we actually put these principles into action?
Well, the book offers some really practical strategies, and one that stood out to me was belonging cues.
Belonging cues?
Yeah, have you heard of that?
I don't think so. What are those?
Basically, they're these subtle signals that create a sense of shared identity and connection within a team.
Okay, so we're talking about more than just saying, like, welcome to the team.
Right. It's got to be more than just words. What are some examples?
Yeah, like how do you actually do it?
Well, think about the physical environment. Even something as simple as arranging desks so people can easily see and interact with each other.
Oh, interesting. So it's about creating spaces that encourage interaction rather than isolation.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the physical, too. Like, think about team rituals or traditions or even inside jokes.
Oh, yeah, those little things that make you feel like you're part of the group.
Exactly. Belonging cues. They might seem small, but they can have a huge impact on how people feel about their work and the team.
If you feel like you belong, you're more likely to be engaged. Contribute your best and take risks.
Exactly. And speaking of risks, one of the best ways to cultivate psychological safety is to model it from the top down.
So leaders have a big role to play.
Huge. When leaders are willing to admit mistakes, ask for help, be open about their own challenges, it signals that it's okay for everyone else to do the same.
It creates a culture where vulnerability is seen as a strength, not a weakness.
Exactly. And this leads us to another strategy, over-communication.
Over-communication. I've heard that term. But how does Coyle apply it to team culture?
It's not just about communicating more, it's about communicating more effectively.
Got it.
Being clear, concise, transparent with information.
So like cutting through the jargon. Getting straight to the point.
Exactly, and being proactive, sharing information before people have to ask for it.
So it's about creating that culture of openness where information flows freely.
Precisely. And this ties back to psychological safety too. When people feel like they have access to the information they need, they're less likely to be anxious or uncertain.
Which makes them more likely to trust their leaders and their teammates.
Exactly. And along with that clear communication, Coyle also stresses the importance of feedback loops.
We talked about this earlier, but How do we make feedback a regular part of the culture?
It starts with framing feedback as a gift, not a punishment, creating that safe space where people feel comfortable giving and receiving constructive criticism.
So it's about helping each other improve.
Right, and making it a regular thing, not just once a year at performance review.
Yeah, I've been there.
It's got to be more frequent.
So more check-ins, maybe peer-to-peer feedback.
Exactly. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And it's also super important to focus on how you give feedback, not just what you say.
Okay, how so?
It should be specific, actionable, and focused on behavior, not personality.
So you're helping them understand how to improve.
Exactly, not making them feel bad about themselves. And just as important as giving feedback is being open to receiving it.
Oh, that's hard sometimes.
It is, but it's key. You got to be open to hearing different perspectives, even if they're not all positive.
So being open to learning and growing.
Exactly. It's a two-way street, this feedback thing. A collaborative process,
It is, yeah.
And we often forget that.
I know, I do.
It's about humility, being willing to learn.
So we've got belonging cues, over-communication, feedback loops. What other strategies does Coyle recommend?
One that's often overlooked is celebrating wins.
Oh, I love that.
Both big and small wins.
I think this is something a lot of teams could be better at. We get so caught up in the day-to-day that we forget to celebrate.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. No,
Yeah.
it could be a team lunch, a thank you note, even just a shout out during a meeting.
The point is to acknowledge and appreciate everyone's contributions.
Exactly. Those small gestures can go a long way in boosting morale, reinforcing positive behaviors and strengthening team bonds.
It's like those little deposits in the emotional bank account of the team.
I like that. Building up that reserve of goodwill and trust.
And that can be so valuable when the team faces challenges down the road.
Absolutely. So it's not just about celebrating success for the sake of it. It's about creating that culture of appreciation and recognition.
Which ultimately strengthens the whole team.
Exactly. Makes people feel valued, appreciated, motivated to do their best work.
So we've covered belonging cues, over-communication feedback loops, celebrating wins. Seems like building a strong culture is multifaceted.
It's about all those little details, and creating that environment that supports both individual growth and the team's success as a whole.
It sounds like a journey, not a destination, right? Cultures are always evolving.
They are. So we've got to be adaptable and always looking for ways to improve.
Okay, so we've explored some strategies for building a strong culture, but how about some real-world examples?
Well, in part 3, we're going to dive into some case studies from Coyle's book.
Oh, perfect.
Companies that have really cracked the culture code.
Love it. We'll see how these principles translate into actual results.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the culture code.
We've talked about the essential elements, the building blocks and some strategies.
Yeah, for building a strong team culture.
And now it's time to see these principles in action in the real world.
Yeah, let's get into some real-life examples.
Coyle's book has some fascinating case studies, and one of the most compelling is the story of the San Antonio Spurs.
Oh yeah, they've been consistently good for so long.
Exactly. They consistently outperformed expectations, even without the biggest stars or budgets.
It's pretty remarkable. What was their secret?
Coyle argues it all came down to their culture.
Makes sense.
Coach Greg Popovich built this environment based on trust, respect, and a shared purpose.
So it wasn't just about talent. It was about creating that system where everyone could thrive.
Right. He emphasized teamwork over individual glory and created a culture of continuous learning.
So they were always striving to get better together.
Exactly. That's a powerful example of how culture can really elevate a team beyond just individual talent.
It's like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. Another case study is Pixar.
Oh yeah, the animation studio.
The one behind classics like Toy Story, Finding Nemo.
How do they come up with those incredible stories?
They're known for their creative and collaborative culture.
Yeah, makes sense.
Coyle says they've built this environment where taking risks, experimenting, sharing ideas is encouraged.
So everyone feels safe to be creative.
Right. They have this process called brain trust, where directors and writers get feedback from their peers in a really supportive setting.
So it's like a built-in support system for creativity.
Yeah, where everyone feels safe to push boundaries and try new things.
I love that.
And this has been key to Pixar's lasting success.
It shows how a supportive open culture can unleash so much potential.
Absolutely. Let's shift gears to the business world now. Coyle also talks about Google's Project Aristotle.
Oh yeah, they were trying to figure out what made their best teams tick, right?
Exactly. They studied hundreds of teams, and guess what?
What?
The key difference wasn't individual skills or experience, but the team's dynamics, how they interacted.
So culture again.
Exactly. And their biggest finding, the importance of psychological safety.
Wow. It really is a common thread, isn't it?
It is. It's crucial for success.
So these real-world examples, they show that culture isn't just some fluffy concept.
It's a real force that drives results.
It's something leaders need to prioritize.
Big time. It's not a nice to have. It's essential for success.
And while leaders set the tone, everyone contributes to the culture, right?
Everyone. It's a collective effort. It takes mindfulness, intentionality, and commitment to creating a positive environment.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the culture code, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
Culture is powerful. It shapes how we work, how we interact. It's crucial for both individual and team success.
And building a strong culture takes effort.
Consistent effort. It's about creating that space where people feel safe, connected, purposeful, empowered to do their best work.
It's a journey,
Continuous learning and improvement.
but the rewards are definitely worth it.
They are.
Well, this deep dive has given us a lot to think about. Definitely encourage everyone to check out the Culture Code for themselves.
Lots more great insights in there.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to our channel, Book Talks Wisdom, for more discussions on books that can really make a difference.
We've got some great episodes coming up.
So hit that subscribe button to stay updated.
And let us know in the comments what books you'd like us to decode next.
Happy reading, everyone, and keep cultivating those amazing cultures.